Hi, everybody. Welcome to Maximizing Your Membership, Understanding Your Insurance Cover. Insurance is one of RCOT's most valued member benefits. It's already included in your membership. You don't have to pay anything extra for it. So it's really important you understand what it entails and how it works so you know how to use it well. Our insurance policy has been specially tailored for the broad range of work occupational therapists do and covers what policies from other providers might not cover. So it's really exciting because it allows us to feel secure when doing all sorts of innovative things to grow our profession. Now, in terms of who this policy covers, it covers very obviously active individual RCOT members, including those who are sole traders who have their own businesses, who are habitual residents in the UK, Ireland, Isle of Man, and all Channel Islands. And by habitual resident, what our insurer means is the country where the person has their center of interest. So it's where you primarily live and work. It doesn't matter whether you're an international student, whether you're here on a skilled worker visa, whether you're here on indefinite leave to remain, this insurance will cover you as long as you're a habitual resident in the listed locations and also covers you regardless of member category. So whether you're a student, associate member, even overseas members who fit the criteria for habitual residents are also covered, with some caveats for retired members, which we'll go into later. Also very important is that there's no income limit. So if you have your own occupational therapy business, there's no limit on the income that you're generating and our policy will cover you. So in terms of who our insurance does not cover, it only covers individuals and not organizations that are legal entities like limited companies and charities, and it also doesn't cover individuals who are not RCOT members. Now, one frequently asked question is whether we provide run-off cover. Run-off cover is only applicable if the insurance policy you have is a claims-made policy, and that means it is the sort of policy that only covers you if both the incident and the claim occur while the policy is active. The good news is that our insurance operates on a claims occurring basis, therefore you do not need run-off cover. What this means is if a claim occurs for an event that happened in the period while your membership was active and you were eligible to be covered, our policy will respond subject to terms and conditions. So let's say you're a member that was eligible to be covered in 2024, but for whatever reason, you're no longer eligible in 2026. And a claim was made against you in 2026 for work that was undertaken in 2024. Our policy from 2024 will respond, and what this means is that if you were eligible to be covered at the time when the incident occurred, you will be covered forever, even if you are no longer a member or no longer eligible. Now, the reason why I mention this is that it's particularly relevant for retired members. Now, for retired members, your insurance covers the duration where both your membership and HCPC registration are active. So for instance, you renew your HCPC registration in October 2025 for 2 years. And then you retire 6 months later and you say, okay, I won't renew in the next round and I won't really do anything about it later. I'll just leave it be for the next couple of years and let it lapse on its own. So essentially, you're covered for the period where both your HCPC registration and RCOT membership are both active together. And if you did voluntary work during that period, you would be covered if someone decided to make a claim against you many years later. Now, if you are employed in the NHS, you will have NHS indemnity, and in these instances, our policy is a backup to the NHS indemnity, which means that if any claims come through for work that you're doing with the NHS indemnity should be the first point of coverage, and the RCOT policy will step in under circumstances where the NHS indemnity doesn't cover you. But the reason for the NHS indemnity refusing to cover cannot just be because you already have a separate policy. Now, having RCOT insurance on top of your employer's insurance is helpful because your employer's insurance coverage is only for what you do during work times for activities that you are doing on behalf of your employer. Whereas RCOT insurance will cover activities outside of work, for instance, volunteering, if you have your own side business, or even Good Samaritan acts, like if you had to administer emergency care like do CPR for somebody on the way to work and you injured the person, your employer's insurance will not cover you, but ours will. So along that vein, why do we as occupational therapists need insurance? Besides it being a regulatory requirement from HCPC, essentially the purpose of insurance is to protect you from the financial and legal consequences of claims made against you during your professional practice. So it's very common for occupational therapists running your own businesses to ask, oh, do I need this sort of insurance or do I need that sort of insurance? And generally, the guiding question that I advise people to think about is, what are the sort of activities you're doing in your occupational therapy work, which people are most likely to want to make financial and legal claims against? And that will allow you to decide whether a particular sort of insurance is something that you might need.
So we're going to talk a little bit here about what the insurance covers. And this has been an improvement with this new insurance provider. So it talks about public liability, products liability, medical, healthcare and treatment indemnity, and professional indemnity. And we're going to explain a little bit more in a minute what they mean. Slide, please. Okay, so the most commonly claimed section of the insurance is public liability. So this covers you for any injury or property damage to service users or people who use your services, and to other third parties. So it might be you're doing a home visit and you spill coffee over somebody's carpet, then the insurance would cover you then. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the products liability. So this covers you for any injury or damage caused by products sold, supplied, distributed, or manufactured. So if an example is an occupational therapist unintentionally supplies a defective grab wheel to a service user, and that causes a fall and an injury. Okay, I'm now going to do tag teaming with Jo Yin, and she's going to do the next few slides.
Can I just comment on that one? What on the products liability? What would typically happen is our insurer would protect the interest of the member and try and push the claim back to the manufacturer or supplier of the product, because it wouldn't normally be the member's fault that the product was faulty. They probably bought it, obtained it in good faith. If the claim can't be pushed back, then our insurers will deal with the claim. But the typical way of doing it is to try and push it back to the supplier or manufacturer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. Over to you, Jo Yin.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Yep. So there are lots and lots of questions in the chat about the sections which are coming up later. So if you can just hold your questions for now until you've actually gone through the content, and then it's like, oh, we've passed this section and then perhaps we haven't addressed it, then bring it up. Yeah, because that we've got a whole slide deck and we kind of need to get through it. So basically, this part of the insurance is about your legal liability in terms of medical and healthcare related work. So this essentially covers a broad range of things and is not necessarily specific to occupational therapy. For instance, it covers Good Samaritan acts. So someone in the comments had asked just now about voluntary and unpaid related work. Yes, and also includes like helping out in terms of emergencies. So next slide, please. Yeah. So here, you as an occupational therapist, these are some of the activities we engage with. Sometimes we may need to engage with health checks. Sometimes people may conduct manual handling. So all these are activities that are part of that are essentially part of our work as healthcare professionals, and is covered. And for instance, under emergencies, you're on a flight and then someone's got an emergency, and while you were trying to apply emergency care, you've unintentionally injured them, the insurance will cover you. Okay, next slide, please. So this should address pretty much most of the questions that came in through the chat just now, coaching, mentoring, supervision, developing products. Oh, what if I want to assess people, the reports that I develop out of the assessments and such. Yep. Yeah, somebody's posted in the chat about making and adapting a product. Bob can help to address this. Is it under this? I think this should come under professional indemnity. Is that right, Bob? If somebody made a product.
No, it would be products liability.
Okay. Yeah.
So if somebody is modifying a product, one would expect them to have the qualifications to do that. But in that case, our insurers would deal with it, because you couldn't push it back to the manufacturer, because the manufacturer would say it was okay when we had it, but you've modified it, and basically you've caused the problem. So our insurers would pick that up as a products liability claim.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah. So essentially, one of the things that I really wanted to communicate here was that it's very, very rare for activities to be out of scope. And my experience, working with our different occupational therapy colleagues and answering the sort of questions it is that most of the time people tend to apply this criteria a bit strictly to themselves. So Pav, if you can kindly please click on to the next slide. Yeah, so we've got a set of guiding questions to help you. As Rachel has been posting in the chat, it's just good to check with the hello. I mean, these are the questions to help you think about how the scope of occupational therapy can apply to your activities. We've got a QR code that goes into that will take you to where the latest briefing is. Currently, the briefing is still the 2024 briefing. It's going to be updated, like it says on the slide, annually. So there's going to be a 2025 version uploaded. We didn't manage to get it ready in time for the webinar, but it will be uploaded. And essentially in the latest briefing, what you will see is that, if your views were ever doubted, the final decision would be made by insurers, and they will work together with our brokers, and also the Royal College, are based on the latest scope of OT briefing, which essentially, yes, we need to understand the scope of OT in terms of, do the activities apply, but also Pav, if you click to the next slide, please. Yeah, this one, so the scope of OT practice, the RCOT scope of OT practice needs to be understood in conjunction with HCPC's scope of practice for registrants. So this applies specifically to you as an individual. RCOT cannot comment on whether you have the knowledge and skills to carry out activities safely and effectively, or whether you have whether there may be certain activities that are restricted by law, and maybe you have specialized training to do these activities. It's prescribing injections and that sort of thing, and therefore you are legally able to do it, but it doesn't mean that other OTs may be legally able to do it. So this is very important in terms of understanding how the scope of occupational therapy practice applies. So RCOT's scope of occupational therapy practice in the previous slide applies to the activity broadly, but also at the same time, this is also applicable, the HCPC scope of practice, in terms of determining your cover. Pav, can you please go back to the previous slide? I missed something there. Yep. So if you read the so essentially, it's about how are you able to provide the professional rationale for the activity and intervention that you are making a claim for. And then the second one you need to look at, is can you move on to the next one? Sorry. It is about how it applies to you as an individual. So some of the questions that we typically get, are, is this activity covered? It's just asking, is this activity covered? But, can you provide a professional rationale for that activity? That's also what essentially is part of what we're looking at as well. So rather, in terms of when you contact RCOT to ask, whether you think something may be covered or may not be covered, it is useful to use these guiding questions. So if you were to submit something to hello@RCOT and say, I have this activity, I don't think it's covered, but I just want to double check with you just to be sure. Here are my responses to the questions. I just want to get an opinion about it. It will help us in terms of helping you better, as opposed to just asking, very short questions without necessarily going into the rationale and the reasoning. Yeah, so please use these questions to help you.
Just to hopefully put all of your minds at rest. So this is going to sound strange. I really love the insurance briefing where it talks about the scope of practice for occupational therapists. I'm actually going to read a small section from it. So if you think about your work as an occupational therapist, doesn't matter if your job title is an occupational therapist. It doesn't matter if you're not working clinically directly with patients, you know, traditionally would have been termed. Have a think about this. So, as we know, at the heart of occupational therapy is the belief that being able to participate in meaningful occupation is fundamental to health and well-being. And as we know, occupation itself has therapeutic value. Okay, so from that, we know as occupational therapists that our core skills, part of it is about the assessment of occupational needs and the facilitation of occupational performance and engagement. So this is the key point coming up now, okay? So under the insurance, any activity that you do as an occupational therapist that you use or do therapeutically in order to enhance or enable occupational performance, then that is considered to be within the scope of occupational therapy practice, okay? And if you were ever asked about this, then you must be able to demonstrate that your professional rationale for any activity or intervention is the enhancement of health and well-being through the promotion of occupational performance and engagement. And as I said before, the job title is not relevant to it. So I hope that puts your mind at rest. So it's not so much what the activity, so we don't have a list of activities that are covered, and then if they're not in that list, they're not covered. That's not how we do it. Anything that you do with an individual that helps to improve their engagement with their occupations and you assessing occupational performance, then it would be covered. And also kind of think about this. So to think about kind of myself as an example. So in the past, NHS, OT, mental health, kind of traditional setting, you think, okay, yeah, definitely I'm delivering occupational therapy. Cool. So now, as I'm working for RCOT, I still need to maintain my HCPC registration. And I've obviously got insurance linked to that. So HCPC say, as Joan was saying, about scope of practice. So HCPC, they still use the term service users, which I know is a bit antiquated, but they term service users as anybody that comes into contact with us and our services. So it could be the traditional setting of, you know, a patient, for example, but for me and for all the occupational therapists who are working at RCOT, our service users are you, our members. And it could be, obviously, if you're an occupational therapy lecturer, your service users are your students, etc., etc. So it's getting away. It's not just looking at clinical, and it's not just looking at a specific amount, a specific list of activities. It's anything is covered as long as it meets the scope of practice. And sometimes it can be a bit frustrating, I think, because people maybe want a clear answer that so-and-so activity is definitely covered under insurance. So what we say is it won't be covered as long as you're using your occupational therapy knowledge, skills and experience, you're competent to do it, and it comes under our scope of practice. You know, are you helping people to engage in their occupations? So us, the OTs at RCOT, we're helping our members to engage in their occupations. I hope that helps for a little example. Right, back to Joanne. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Yep. So yeah, with regards to what is the maximum amount the insurer will pay, you're covered up to 10 million for a single claim. And if you have multiple claims in the same policy year, the total payout across those claims cannot exceed 10 million. If you've used up your 10 million insurance limit. So basically, you've seen number 1, 2, 3, and 4 parts of the insurance policy earlier. Bob might just want to step in where appropriate. But, my understanding is that, across number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, your total access to those claims should not exceed 10 million. Beyond 10 million, the insurance doesn't cover. And if the 10 million insurance limit is used up, something really unfortunate happened, and then you've used up everything across across all 4, the policy allows it to be reset for insured events under medical indemnity only. You know, so let's say you've used up your 10 million and then you've you applied emergency care in a situation, you know, and then you injured somebody. So yeah, and then you were sued for it. So then the policy can still cover you beyond that 10 million insurance limit. I hope it makes sense. Yeah. So this limits apply individually to each insured member and it's not shared across the members. So that's a good thing. Yeah. All right, next, please. So in terms of, yeah, this is actually the most commonly claimed one. It applies to all 4 types of insured events that we've covered before. It covers legal costs and expenses of up to 20,000 for HCPC fitness to practice investigations. But this applies specifically to you if you're talking about the work that's not carried out under the contract of service. So for instance, of work that you're not doing as an employee. You know, so the policy has other extensions, endorsements, and exclusions, and we'll cover some of them later. But, you know, please also look into the policy for more details. Next, please.
Joanne, I'm
Yeah.
just going to jump in.
Yep.
So,
All right. Yep.
again, so just so you know, so as well, hopefully it will never happen to you. But if it does, you know, if you were reported to HCPC for a fitness to practice concern, you know, we will support you. So that's the professional advisory service, and where it talks about kind of the legal costs and expenses. So that generally is for self-employed members or members who might do a bit of NHS work and then some private work. If you're a full professional member, fully employed by an institution, then Unison would provide the legal support. So just let you know that's there. And if it ever happened to you or you know somebody, please get in touch with us because we will provide, you know, ongoing support for you. Thanks, Joanne.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know why the headings are not showing up. Can we go back again, Path, just to make sure that we're on the right slide because I'm a bit confused. Okay, yeah, okay, next slide. Yeah, okay. So indemnity to principal, I think this came up in one of the questions earlier. Yes, so the indemnity to principal means that you are working as a contractor, as an associate for an organization, and a claim is made against the organization you are working for, which is the principal, because of a wrongful act committed by you, which is the insured BAOT member against a service user. So the policy will cover the organization you are working for as if the claim had been made against you. So this is particularly applicable to the occupational therapists that are working as associates, as contractors. And, you know, one of the very common questions that we had received from the form earlier was, you know, how does the, you know, does this insurance cover associate work, you know, or does it cover everything that we need for associate work? So specifically in terms of associate work, we have found that most of the big organizations that engage associates do have accepted accepted this new 2025 version of the RCOT insurance. If for whatever reason you've encountered an organization that wouldn't accept that, you know, please contact us at hello@RCOT. Yep. Okay, next, please. And yes, working with animals. So this is becoming increasingly popular. So this could be a little bit confusing to some people because when I first read the policy, I noticed that that there were dogs and horses were named in the policy, but you know, there were other animals. Apparently, all other animals are covered as well, but they're not named explicitly in the policy. The reason why dogs and horses are named explicitly in the policy is that there are specific terms and conditions for working with them. But other animals, you know, cats, rabbits are the most common inquiries that we receive, and yes, they are covered. If you know you are working with some very exotic animals that are not indicated on this slide, please contact Aon, you know, to check. Yep. Okay, next.
The use of small domestic pets is covered. we get inquiries about pigs and goats and so on and so forth. But the one thing to remember is that where we do extend the policy to cover specifically horses and dogs, we're only extending the treatment cover, not the public liability cover. So if the horse or the dog bites somebody else in the room or runs amok and causes an accident, that isn't covered. We're not looking to cover the horse owning or dog owning liability. We're looking to cover the use of horses and dogs in the provision of treatment. So that's quite specific.
Thanks, Bob. And just talking about this has really made me think, because I've been at RCOT for nearly 10 years now, and we really do try to respond to your needs and your requests regarding insurance. And this is like a perfect example. So a few years ago, we started to get more inquiries about working with horses therapeutically with people, and also therapy dogs, but it wasn't specifically mentioned. So that's kind of the work that Bob and Alex do as our brokers, to go to the insurers and say, look, this is what we would like added to our policy. Is it possible? So that really, for me as a member, it really kind of shows that the responsiveness of the insurance, and we try as much as possible to make it meet your needs as members, but we can't be super specific, because it's one insurance policy for kind of all the members. We can't differentiate between different people. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Yes. So this is again one of the common questions that came in through our Q&A form before. With regards to how our insurance covers housing OTs, there seems to be a misunderstanding on the part of some colleagues where where housing work is not covered. So I think it's very important to address this specific part of the structural survey exclusion. So it basically, housing OTs, may work, I think for the most part, there is a lot of housing work that doesn't necessarily affect parts of the building which carries load in addition to its own weight. So if you're not removing a load-bearing wall or a load-bearing part of the building, then, that's covered fine. But what if you have work that needs to affect a part of the building that carries load in addition to its own weight? So the insurance will cover you if you must obtain, insurance cover you if you have a prior written approval from a qualified architect or surveyor. If you don't have this approval, the related claims will not be covered. So we'll cover that in the next slide in a little bit more detail. We've got an example. Yeah, so for instance, if an occupational therapist is specifying and signing off plans for a level access shower room to replace an existing bathroom, and this specification can affect a part of the building that carries load in addition to its own weight. For instance, you need to remove the chimney breast to create more space in the bathroom for circulation. How could the OT ensure that they are covered under the policy, right? So this relates again to, so if you click to the next slide, this relates again to, in terms of legal, in terms of certain things being what you can legally sign off and not legally sign off on. So if you have the prior written approval from a qualified architect or surveyor, then yes, you will be covered. What if you don't have a qualified architect or surveyor? Would a builder be okay? The thing is, again, if we go back to legal, what people can legally and cannot do, legally can do or cannot do, similar to what we talk about in terms of our HCPC scope of practice as an individual. Can builders do legally sign off? Builders cannot, because generally speaking, most builders are not qualified to independently sign off. So the reason why why the legal aspect is very important, being able to legally sign off is important, is so that if that things go wrong, and you have that written approval to show that's already been signed off, then the insurers have a few options. You know, they can help to defend you, or, you know, they could accept liability on behalf of you, or they could pass on liability to the architect or the surveyor, you know. But if it was somebody who was not, who cannot legally sign off on this, you know, then essentially it is a restriction on the insurers, and that's why they don't cover this. Yep. All right. I think we'll pass on to Anne now. She will cover geographical aspects.
Thank you, Jo-Yin. I hope you're all okay. We did say there's a lot of information, so we'll, like I said, we'll go through it. But if you have any questions, we will get to them either when we finish the slides, but there might not be time. If not, definitely afterwards. Right. So this is something that's I was particularly excited about. So now the insurance will cover you to work outside of your habitual residence as long as it's up to 90 days per visit. So with our old insurance, you were only allowed 30 days per year, but now it's 90 days per visit. So this also
that's effectively that's
yeah,
effectively to cater for student placements.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah, thank you, Bob. Yeah, because we contacted in the past, you know, maybe somebody wants to do a placement in another country, and it's going to take longer than 30 days. So we've responded to that. Also, virtual work that you do whilst in your habitual residence counts as the location that you're sitting at your computer in counts as the location. So it might be that you're in the UK and you see service users in India remotely. So this counts technically as you working in the UK because that's where you are. And also linked to that, HCPC have got some useful information on its website regarding remote working. But again, if you've got any inquiries or questions about that, just contact Professional Advisory Service via the hello email. Next question. Sorry, next slide, please. So when this talks about working outside of your habitual residence, so this is working with service users who geographically are in those locations. So you wouldn't be covered if it's Canada, USA. I don't know what or its protectorates means, Bob. What does that mean?
It means the countries which come under the United States probably jurisdiction, but military protection. And the point to make as well is that when we talk about habitual residence, we're not talking about a house, we're talking about a country.
Yes.
You know, so which is either Great Britain, Northern Ireland, the Channel Islands, or the Isle of Man. That's one lumped together, and the other one is the Republic of Ireland.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. Next slide, please. Okay, so this next bit talks about working outside of your habitual residence. So this is an example that's a link to what Bob was just talking about. So if you're based in the UK, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, if a claim was made against you in any of these locations, you would be covered. If a claim was made against you in the Republic of Ireland, it would not be covered. So if you are a UK-based OT working in the Republic of Ireland, the claim must be made against you in the UK to be covered. What I would say is don't worry too much about this, because if something was to occur, then we could advise you anyway, or if you've got any specific questions, because it can get a bit technical sometimes with the insurance and what's covered and geography. So just to tell you that. Next slide, please. So if you're based in the Republic of Ireland, so if a claim was made against you in the Republic, you would be covered. But if a claim was made against you in the UK or Isle of Man or Channel Islands, it wouldn't be covered unless the claim was redirected to the Republic of Ireland. So, Bob, is there anything you want to say there? No.
People with student placements in particular,
Yeah.
students will say to us, and it applies equally to the example you've just given. Well, what if it is made against me in that country? To which I usually say, well, do you have any assets in that country? And the answer is invariably no. And the insurance doesn't cover them. Then the claimant is surely going to redirect the claim to where the member does have assets, you know, a house or whatever it is, and where their insurance is valid. It makes sense. So under the old policy, it used to say the claim had to be first made against you in your home country. It doesn't say that now. It just says if it is made against you. So you would expect the claimant to, and this would be the same with remote work. If you're working with someone in Egypt, why would the claimant try and sue you in Egypt when you're sitting in Great Britain and that's where all your assets are?
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got a few scenarios now just to go through, and again they're just examples to try and explain the insurance. So this is talking about cross-border working. So a member works Monday to Wednesday in Northern Ireland, but their habitual main residence is the Republic. So they also work Thursday and Friday in the Republic. So we need to think about, will their work be covered in both Northern Ireland, which is obviously part of the UK, and the Republic of Ireland, which is a separate country. So with our insurance, yes, so they would be covered for all their work done in Northern Ireland. And also, it doesn't matter how many visits you have across the border, but you just need to make sure that it is less than the 90 days. Okay.
Anyone? Yes.
In any one. Thank you, Bob. In any one period. So because it's relatively common, you know, for members who live either in Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland to go, you know, to cross the border to do work, and then also for students for placement. So this is really good because this is extra cover that solves that headache for people who were they were insured one side of the border but not the other side of the border. So that's taken away that stress. Next slide, please. Okay. So I like this term, digital nomad. So they basically this is an occupational therapist who travels around. So they might do, they call it getting about a bit. They might do 90 days in Thailand, 90 days in Japan, 90 days in Singapore, 90 days in Canada, and they see everybody remotely. Their primary location is in the Isle of Man. So I think, oh, will they be covered? The important thing to remember is that activities in Canada would not be covered because, as we know, USA and Canada is not covered by our insurance. And the rest would be covered, but again, provided claims were brought against them in either the UK, Isle of Man, or the Channel Islands. Slide, please. Oh, thank you. So this is about talk about placement, student going on placement. So a student from a UK university goes on a 90-day practice placement in Tanzania. They unintentionally injure a service user and a claim is made against them in Tanzania in the courts. Will the RCT insurance cover? This is exactly what Bob is talking about, so no. But now, if the claims were subsequently brought against them in the UK, then our insurance would cover you.
So dual insurance is a frequently asked question. That means you've got two policies that are covering exactly the same thing. And sometimes you don't really have a choice around this. The university you study in, your employer or private company you work for provides this to you by default. Our policy addresses this through exclusion 11.2 and clause 12.21 in the sense that it will act as an access layer.
So what we're very passionate about for you, our members, is that you're not paying for extra insurance that you don't need. So the important thing to do, I think, one thing to take away from this is, if you feel that might apply to you, is to look at our insurance, look at what we cover, think about the work you do, and all the things that are already covered as you as an individual occupational therapist with our insurance. And so if you are paying extra with a different provider, you don't need to do that.
I said to a member yesterday, whilst we've done what we can to make sure that if there is dual insurance, it's not a complete waste of money. So we've got this top up element to it. You wouldn't insure your car twice or your house twice, regardless of what the benefits were. So
exactly.
If you were to buy this exact same policy on the open market without RCOT membership, the cost would be around £1,500 a year, not including insurance premium tax. So if you consider the fact that RCOT membership is under £300 a year, plus all the other benefits that you get as well, our membership is excellent value for money.
So this looks at when would you need to buy a separate policy or top up. So that would be, if your habitual residence was outside of the UK, Ireland, Isle of Man, or the Channel Islands, or if you work with service users in Canada or USA and it's protectorates. And I've now learned what that means. So thank you, Bob. Next slide, please. Oh, here you go. Beg pardon. So yeah, if you need coverage, so again, the insurance is all about you. Think about you with your OT hat on. That's what it covers. If you looking for cover regarding a limited company or an entity, our insurance doesn't cover that, and you'd have to seek top-up insurance. And again, obviously, if you undertake work that doesn't fall under the scope of occupational therapy practice. Okay, thank you.
Examples of US protectorates would be like Guam or American Samoa, countries like that, which aren't part of America, but are treated in many ways like they are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bob. Next slide, please. So if you are sitting there thinking, gosh, I am, maybe I am dually insured, the important thing to do is to show the broker the RCOT policy and ask them to exclude any elements that are already included in the RCOT policy. Is there anything else you'd want to add there, Bob, or any sort of advice regarding that? Because I know you have lots of conversations with members about this.
You occasionally get, I had one yesterday where I said, oh, well, the people I'm working for won't accept your confirmation of cover. The point I made was, well, Aon are one of, if not the largest insurance broker in the world. And throughout all sorts of different sectors, construction, haulage, whatever it is, our letters confirming cover are universally accepted as evidence of cover. And I think the only times I've ever encountered anybody telling me they're not acceptable is from the occasional call I've had from a member. So, that always surprises me when I do get one.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. And then next slide, please. So if you need, sometimes an employer or prospective employer wants to see evidence of your specific insurance certificate with your name on it, then you just need to contact Aon, give them obviously your name and your membership number, your RCOT membership number, and you'll be given your certificate. And where it says here, Bob, we're not able to provide access to a downloadable insurance certificate, is that talking about just generally the insurers? Or I know RCT can't give them. Do you know what that's referring to?
It means from the website, from your website.
From the website. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That's good. Yeah. So we do get contacted. Understandably, people say, please, can you send me my certificate? So we can't do it, but Aon can. Brilliant. Next slide, please. Right. This is the final slide. So if you following this, you might have millions of questions. If it's something that hasn't already been covered, then please email hello@rct.co.uk and just say, for attention of the Professional Advisory Service, or PAS, you could say. If you want to get in touch with Aon, details on the QR code, but also the links in the presentation as well, the QR codes will take you to the insurance pages. there are lots of questions. So what we're going to do as well is, after the webinar, to go through and see if there's anything that we haven't covered. We will then send we'll update our insurance frequently asked questions so people have access to that. So great.
Yeah.
Go on, Julian.
Yeah, if you have anything else to add, or can I quickly jump in somewhere?
No, you go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to say, I mean, as I was going through the slides earlier, I meant to mention this, but so there are quite a number of questions coming in specifically about independent practice. The recording is going to be, we are going to have a copy of the recording in the independent practice professional network resources section, but also at the same time, there is going to be supplementary information developed on independent practice, because I know we just don't have time to address them all in this webinar. And, this is for, this webinar is for the general audience. So for independent practice specific questions, I will be addressing them in the supplementary information in our professional network. Please make sure you've signed up to RCOT communities and you've connected yourself to the network, and you'll be notified when I get that uploaded with the recording. Yep. The RCOT policy was updated just this year. So this year is a brand new insurance provider. So that's how you have the information that we have. Yeah. And Bob, I don't know if you want to quickly cover about topping up policies.
About what, sorry?
So there's a question in the chat about, can you top up the current Aon policy?
Can you top it up? Not through ourselves, because the regulations which govern a single policy covering getting on for 40,000 individuals doesn't allow any variation whatsoever. You would have to take it. I mean, in terms of topping it up, I don't know if people are meaning in terms of the level of cover. I wouldn't expect people to need any more than £10 million worth of cover for any one of those types of insurance that our policy covers. But they could try. I think they might find it difficult.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bob. Right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to bring this webinar to a close. Thank you so much for attending. Also, thank you for bearing with us with all the information, because it's a topic that's obviously, there's so much detail. So when you get the recording, feel free to look at it again. We're going to send you the slides, and just be reassured, if you have any questions, we will help you, and we'll also update, like I said, our frequently asked questions on the insurance on our website. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.